got that nice jazzy music for my intro. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chef Char Nolan, live from my kitchen a mile outside of Philadelphia. So nice of you to join us today for my Ask Me Anything session with all of you. Happy that many of you are here. Thank you in advance for the questions, which we will be answering in a couple of minutes. Patrick and I, and by the way, Patrick is the producer for today. He and I were chatting about my recent trip to Apulia, which was more than I ever could have expected. I stayed on a 400-year-old olive tree farm, and I learned many of the traditional dishes that I grew up with my maternal grandparents who were from just 12 miles away from where I was staying. And the trick this past week for me is recreating those recipes without oil or salt and staying on an olive farm where a family has great pride in their oil was very interesting, and I embraced their pride and am happy that I still know how to no oil saute an onion and have it taste delicious. It was a wonderful time. And if you ever have the experience to travel to the agricultural part of Italy, it's largely rural, it's on the coast. It was delicious. Yes, I ate pasta every day, but tons and tons of greens in every single lunch and dinner with a beautiful breakfast of fresh fruit and delicious coffee. And my favorite childhood cookie, which they made egg-free, called tarali, and their little ring of cookie, and they're very, very good. So here we are. Before we jump into things, two things I just want to talk about really quickly is start saving your spice jars, because many grocery stores like Sprouts or Mom's or Whole Foods Market sell ground spices in bulk. And a few weeks ago, I went and had another cinnamon bottle filled. We like cinnamon in my house. And a bottle of the organic was something like 5.67, and for 98 cents, I was able to fill this up, reuse a glass jar. So whether you're using trying to replace, a generic store brand or a beautiful brand, start saving your bottles and make sure that when you do save them, that you're not like me and throw away those plastic tops. So anyway, that's my spiel for today, and I think we'll just get right into the questions. And if you have any questions about my trip to Italy as a whole food plant-based person, and I just wanted to tell you that I did let the culinary team know before I went that I did have some dietary restrictions. So the whole week was plant-based, which was really, really wonderful. And my favorite dish was um, mustard greens covered with a white bean sauce that was absolutely delicious. So let's start off with our first question. Someone has a lot of recipe books at home, and they're wondering how to substitute ingredients in order to have the recipes become plant-based. And I would add to that plant-based and flavorful. So I've been cooking this way for more than 14 years. And in the beginning, um, I used to think, oh, I'll never be able to make my grandmother's name of a dish. But the reality is that your taste buds become so accustomed to eating without added oils and added salts that the food just tastes delicious. And it's actually the food that you taste. So the answer is yes. You already know, if you're in Forks Over Knives or if you're in Plant Pro, you already know how to do a no oil saute, which is an entry into many, many different ways of cooking, because more than cooking onions or more than cooking mushrooms, there's zucchini, there's eggplant, there's tons of other things. In terms of trying to recreate baked goods, this is where I always say, if you are a Plant Pro student or a Forks Over Knife student, you need to become a student in Chef Fran Costigan's Essential Vegan Desserts, because aside from her being an expert and a pro, she has every tip up her sleeve. I'm not a baker, but I bake muffins and hearty breads and things like that. And using substitutions with flaxseed meal, with chia seeds, with bananas, with sweet potatoes as my oil. Um, things just seem to work out. And I will also say that practice makes practice better. So I would certainly experiment and maybe start off with one or two simple recipes so that you'll gain that confidence to, as we say, flip a recipe. So that is my suggestion for that. I'd love to know how many cookbooks you have. Cherish them all, but just remember, with a Post-it note and a good pen, you can flip any recipe. Very good question, May. Thanks so much for writing in. I really appreciate it. Well, guess what? Our next question is from Fran C., and that's Fran Costigan, who is the director of the Essential Vegan Desserts program. And if you follow Fran at Good Cakes Fran on Instagram, you'll see some of the luscious desserts that many of her students make. So her question is, she's wondering what's on my holiday table, because not everybody who will be at the table is plant-based. So here's the thing. No one knows that all of the side dishes are plant-based. I was able to take my father's trusted 100-year-old recipe of sliced baked sweet potatoes with sliced Granny Smith apples and using dandy marshmallows, which, as you know, are plant-based, to recreate that dish for Thanksgiving. Lots of vegetables, Fran, and as you know, I don't use any butter substitutes, but if you are someone that still likes to use a commercial product like Miyoko's butter or whatever your favorite is, the side, to me, Thanksgiving is all about the sides. And I want to just give a shout out to homemade cranberry sauce that you don't have to cook. A bag in the blender, about 4 or 5 pitted dates, 1 chopped up orange, or a cup of fresh pineapple, and just chop it up in the Vitamix or whatever high-speed blender you have, and you will have the most delicious cranberry relish that you could ever want. And that has become my family's favorite. Stay away from the stuff in the jar with the curly rings around it. Lots and lots of sugar and very little nutrient value. So, Fran, that's a good question. We'll have to talk about what each of us are making the next time I see you. Thanks for your question. Oh, this is from Carlene. Hi, Carlene. How are you today? She's making vegetable broth from scraps, and you know I love to hear that. And she's saving them in a Ziploc freezer bag. So far, so good. Are there any particular vegetables that aren't good to use with broth? You know, I just have a melange of frozen vegetables in my freezer, and they may not all be related on a food chart, but they all come from the ground and they all taste delicious. Some might have a predominant flavor. Sometimes I'll take that plastic bag of unknown frozen vegetable scraps and I'll add a can of low sodium canned tomatoes just to sort of move the flavor profile to another direction so that it doesn't quite taste like celery or it doesn't quite taste like beets or whatever. So that's wonderful news to hear. I love when students start becoming involved with full food utilization and not creating waste. So that is wonderful. And I know the flavor of it is very good as well. So that's very good, Carlene. Thanks so much for writing in. And you know, it's kind of funny looking back on my trip to Italy and thinking back to the way that my grandparents would cook. Full food utilization has been around for centuries. Having spent a week in a kitchen in Italy, nothing is ever thrown away, and vegetable stock is made from scraps. So for people who believe that that this movement is new, it's been around for a long time. And the other interesting thing is the international slow food movement was actually invented by an Italian. And all the food that I was witness to being prepared was cooked on a low flame for a long time so that the flavor of the vegetables that I was eating was 100% intact. So keep on going with saving those vegetable scraps. Good question. This is from Anna Z. She uses bananas and applesauce in place of oils for desserts like muffins and cake. Is there a rule of thumb for these purees to flour ratio? Sometimes the recipes seem to be a hit or miss. Again, this would be the perfect question for Fran, but I'm going to tell you what I do. I look at texture a lot. Sometimes you may have added your bananas and your applesauce and maybe used a sweet potato or pureed tofu or whatever. And then you put the flour in and it's still looking very loose. And so I will add a little bit more flour and kind of just go with the feel of the batter. But again, let me say that Chef Fran has an event on November the 14th. And I would suggest to sign up for that and direct your specific baking questions to Fran. And I think later in the queue, we have a question about flaxseed. I'm a big fan of using flax eggs. So here's your flaxseed. I keep it in the refrigerator once I open it. And then I have a measuring spoon and a measuring cup. And how do I remember the ratio? Here's how I remember it. You're driving one car, but a stoplight has 3 lights. So it is, excuse me, sorry about that. It is 3 tablespoons of water, that's your light, and the flaxseed is your car. So it's 1 to 3. And then you mix it up and then let it sit for about 5 minutes. And the texture will change greatly and it will become rather tenacious. And I use 1 mix per egg. So if a recipe called for 2 eggs, I would double this scientific proportion of ingredients to make it equal to eggs. I find this, and this is just me, I find this to be the most successful of all of the eggs that, the faux eggs that I make. And remember to keep it stored in your refrigerator. And you know, Anna, I think it's okay if a recipe is hit or miss, because remember that new recipes are learning experiences for us. So if any of you have any questions, you know, you can always email student services at Rouxbe, or you can even go on Instagram and send a message, and that question will be routed to the appropriate person. And if it's baking, we know that it will go to Fran because she is the expert. Oh, and Anna Z just signed up for desserts, so that's great. You're gonna love the class, and it's really fun because we love to hear when students use the phrase "I get to eat my homework," even though you do that in all the other classes. But you love working with Fran, and you will learn a great deal. So that's exciting, very exciting. I love it. In my experience, this is from Fran C. Italians don't expect Americans to be like castenaccio. It may be an acquired taste, but I'm a fan. Did you encounter the cake in Puglia or hear it discussed? We did not have castenaccio. I'm trying to think. We had an onion tart and we had taralli, but we did not have castenaccio. Maybe you can make some for me. My birthday is in a few weeks. Hint, hint. Thank you, Fran. Chef Char, how did you navigate the conversations on your trip in regard to you not eating oils and extra salts without offending others? Oh yeah, and Patrick has added the castenaccio as chestnut flour, which I saw in the kitchen. Chef Char, how did you navigate the conversations on your trip to Italy with not eating the oils and extra salts? Well, you know, that is the best question. And before I went, I had this, you know, this is what I'm going to eat. But then I realized after being there for about 20 minutes that the olive oil culture was such a big part of who this family had been for the last 400 years. So I ate everything, but I navigated my plate very, very well. And that worked out perfectly. Um, I did ask them to use less salt, and they were fine with that. So I think, I was in the Peace Corps. So it kind of reminded me of being on an estagio in Brazil, where you embrace the culture and you honor what people do. And I just learned to work around it and ate a lot of greens. So that's a very sensitive question, Cynthia, and I appreciate your asking that. But we make the best of what we have to do. So there were some things that I did not eat. I would just say, no, thank you, in my most polite Italian. So this is from Dan M. I only know one Dan M, and that's Dan Merrick. And if it is Dan, hi Dan. Dan is one of the other instructors here at Rouxbe and creates all kinds of wonderful programs. So, what was the best thing you ate on your recent trip, and how would you make it at home? Well, I grew up eating a dish called panagotta, not panna cotta, but panagotta with a G. And it is essentially a heavy vegetable soup with lots and lots of greens in it. And when it is served with, it is served with toasted bread on top. And then the bread gets all mushy, and then you stir it together, but the crust stays crusty. So, the dish brought back a lot of childhood memories, but it was a dish that my grandparents stopped making once they believed that they had made it in America, because panagotta is considered from the umbrella of cibo povera. And they wanted to be assimilated as more as Americans and fit into what Americans ate. Even though I will tell you that up until I was about 30 years old, I called white bread American bread, because that's what we grew up calling it in my house. And my grandparents never bought American bread. I'll send you some pictures, Dan, of the ones that I have recreated here at home, and also a very, very simple red sauce made with onions, fresh tomatoes, cut them in quarters, because when you cut them in quarters, they break down quicker and more easily and will render more flavor. And then about a cup of passata, which is uncooked tomatoes. And so, and fresh oregano, um, delicious. And I will also just add to this that here we are now eating in season and doing all kinds of wonderful things. And at the farm that I stayed at, the basil was out of season. So what they eat next would either be fresh parsley, flat as we know it, or mint. And they like to use fresh, even though they had harvested some of the oregano to use. And I will tell you that my second best dish, and Dan, I've made this one too, is zucca, is pumpkin, and roasted pumpkin covered with cinnamon and oregano. And the flavors were absolutely delicious. So it was a wonderful learning experience, but I would say panagotta, and I actually have had it several nights in a row because it's that good. So thank you, Dan, for your question. And I had a great time. It was a wonderful, wonderful learning experience in so many ways. It was really, deeply touching for me. And I would text Chef Fran and tell her what I ate for breakfast or lunch and what I had taken in, and going to a pottery mill of an 85-year-old potter who made these incredible terracotta pots, because terracotta is the soil in Puglia is almost red because of its iron content. Anyway, I could go on for too long of a time. This is from Mary G. And Mary G has a question about breakfast. Should breakfast be eaten as soon as possible or wait until you're hungry? And she adds that today she woke up at 7, but she wasn't hungry until 10. So we should listen to the cues of our body. And I think that maybe a lot of us grew up eating breakfast before we went to school at 7:30 in the morning. I get up at 6 a.m., but I don't eat the minute I wake up. I usually go out for a bike ride around 9, and I will eat breakfast around 8:30 so that I am fueled up. So you have to do what is best for you, what your body wants. Um, I read a lot about intermittent fasting. I'm not an intermittent fasting expert, but there is an 8-hour window that we're supposed to eat within. I don't know. I know a lot of people who do this. I'm just saying, do what's best for you, and eat when you're hungry. And true hunger, not emotional hunger, like you see a banana across the room and say, oh, I think I'll eat a banana. But always ask yourself if you're hungry. So thanks, Mary. Very much appreciate it. This next question is from Barbara P. Hi, Barbara. Hope you're having a great day. And Barbara wants to know if she can use egg whites in place of an egg when baking. If you are practicing a whole food plant-based diet, eggs are an animal product, so I would not use them. I would experiment with using some of the other types of eggs that you can use, made from flax, chia, sweet potato, tofu, bananas, apples, applesauce, grated apples, applesauce. But I would, if I went to someone's house and they used egg whites, I would probably not feel well after ingesting that animal product. So that would be my suggestion, to look at some of the alternatives that can be used, but not an egg white from a chicken. Thanks for your question. It's a very good question. This is from Ingrid O. One of my big questions of cooking life is, when do you use tall or high diameter pots? What is the big deal about the Le Creuset pot? Well, you know, when my husband and I were married 43 years ago, maybe, one of his cousins gave us a Le Creuset, and I fell immediately in love with it for a couple of reasons. One reason is that things cook quicker, even though I'll cook them slowly, but also the pan itself retains its heat. So if you also transfer it and use it as a serving dish, your food will stay warmer longer. Le Creuset is very expensive, and I think I read a few weeks ago that BJ's or Costco, or one of those places, was offering for $4,200 and an entire set of Le Creuset that comes to your house, actually on a pallet, and takes days to unpack. $4,200, A, is a lot of money. B, who on earth has all of that space in their kitchen? But I would suggest to look for Le Creuset sales. They do pop-up sales. They just had one here in Philadelphia on October the 22nd, and things are marked down drastically. I have a couple of faux pieces that chip horribly. So I'm true and blue to the couple of pieces of Le Creuset that I have, and find them to be, really fabulous for non-oil saute. So you may want to look at that. In terms of tall pots and short pots, a stock pot is what you're going to make stock in, because it can hold all of that volume. And when we make pasta in our house, we use a tall pot as well. And here's the reason why: my grandmother did. So that's the answer to that question. And thanks for writing. It's a very good question, Ingrid. This is from Linda B., who shares that she is a type 2 diabetic who follows a whole food plant-based diet. And she also eats the Clean 15. And it limits her range of vegetables. And she loves Brussels sprouts. So here's the thing: organic, fresh Brussels sprouts are really difficult to find. Brussels sprouts happen to be my favorite vegetable. And if you are doing the roasted vegetable assignment here in Rouxbe, you have a myriad of vegetables to choose from. I would suggest to go with the Brussels sprouts because that recipe is really good and delicious. However, I am a big fan of frozen vegetables. So let me say this, that places like Sprouts, uh, places like Martin's or Giant um, offer a frozen organic Brussels sprout. It's not the same thing, but if it's the flavor that you like, I air fry them so that they don't get mushy like if I would boil them or whatever. And I will also share with you that I do believe that food origins are also very important. So, for example, if you buy a frozen bag of the Whole Foods Market 365 Brussels sprouts, they're actually from Brussels. So I kind of figure like, oh, the people in Brussels know what they're doing. Um, there's another brand called Woodstock that is particularly known for making or creating organic vegetables. It comes in what looks like a brown paper bag. Don't be fooled though, it's lined with plastic, so don't cook in it. However, they do not have organic Brussels sprouts. They have ones that are GMO free. Back to the raw Brussels sprouts, what I do is after I cut the stem off, I will peel away the outer layers that are sometimes black or spotted, and then I will prepare them as I do. The other thing that you can do is if you have any of those organic spray washers, um, you can clean them off after you take off the outside leaves if that makes you feel better. And this just reminds me, um, uh, I've been to Honduras many, many times for mission trips doing outreach. And the woman who is the chef at the house that I stay at knows that I don't eat food that has a mother or eyes. Very easy to say in Spanish. And they clean their vegetables in bleach. And they make up this big vat of water. And they'll put about a tablespoon of agua sanitaria in the water, and that's how they clean all of their vegetables. And I think I've been to Honduras maybe 30 times and I've never gotten sick. So I would go to the produce department though of your store and look for one of those spray things, and I would enjoy the Brussels sprouts and think of me when you eat them because they are my favorite vegetable. Good luck to you, Linda, and thanks so much for the question. Oh, this is from Nadine J. Um, can I give her some guidance into doubling a recipe? She did the faux stock and had to double it because she has a big crowd, and I didn't know if she should double the spices. So here's the thing about that recipe. I'll give you a couple of sort of cautionary tales about it. When you do make it, I double all of the ingredients. I lay back a little bit on the star anise because sometimes I don't enjoy that herbal flavor, but I double up on everything else from the cinnamon stick to the ginger to the garlic and everything else. But the one thing that I do like to remind students, and some of you may have seen me respond to this in the reviews that we do, is A, for the orange and for the lime, make certain that you wash the skin thoroughly. And then after that, in the recipe, I believe it tells you to take them out after 20 minutes. And indeed do that, because what can happen is that leaving the peel in too long, along with the zest, can render a bitter flavor to the faux. So I have had some students who have complained of it being bitter. I personally like to just drink the pho as just a drink because I think that the broth is that good. And the fact that it is not a high sodium stock or broth, I think also says a lot compared to the commercial brands that carry anywhere between 750 and 1,000 milligrams per cup. So double up. And if there's a flavor that you like the best, then I would add a little bit more of that. But that was a great question. And I'm so glad that your big crew enjoys that stock because it is really, really delicious. Thanks so much for writing. I appreciate it. Cynthia D is back again. She just made bean and veggie soup and added too many minced onions. She's practicing. Is there a way to minimize the overpowering taste of onions to add to soup? Um, I made something yesterday. I was testing a recipe and it had too many onions in it. And I added a little bit of balsamic vinegar to sort of redirect the flavor of the onions. You can put a potato into the soup, and the potato, just peel a potato, cut it in half, throw it in the pot, and the potato will absorb some of that oniony flavor that you seem to like. So either potato while you're cooking, and then at the end, if it still tastes a little too oniony to you, a little splash of some balsamic vinegar or glaze will do the trick. I think that'll work. Keep practicing. That's good. This is from Mary G. In no oil saute, is it possible that the pan gets too hot and that it doesn't work? Mary was cooking on Sunday and was having a difficult time, and she's not sure what went wrong. Well, maybe nothing went wrong. That's the first thing. So if you have a stainless steel pot, doing the mercury water bowl test is sort of like the tried and true way to measure the heat of your pan. So I would look at that, and then I would also look at the size of the vegetables that you were using. It's really important to think about vegetables being of the same size so that they can cook evenly and at the same temperature. So you're saying that that it was a difficult time. I would love to know what wasn't right for you. I find the no oil saute works if you're starting out. That recipe that we give you with for the mushrooms, with the shallots and the garlic, et cetera, et cetera. And another thing that's very helpful is if you are even doing a dry saute, is to listen to the sound of the sizzle. And if the sizzle is too fast and too high pitched, then you want to turn down your flame a little bit. And sometimes you have to regulate that. And I don't know if you're cooking on a gas stove or an electric stove, but listening is another way to help you along in that. So keep me posted. Shoot me an email at char@rouxbe.com or send me a photo. I would love to see it because in a while, no oil saute really becomes second nature to you. And it's kind of like riding a bicycle when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have it. So I'm sure they were really good. So thanks for writing, Mary. This is from Janet B. Back to the vegetable stock from scraps. What about things like, always leave in the onion skins because the onion skins will render a lovely color. So if you're using yellow onions, the yellow skin will give a beautiful color. If you're using Bermuda or red onions, as we like to call them, it will deepen and give it a rich, robust red color. So always the skins, garlic skins, potato skins, any kind of skin. I'm trying to think of a skin that wouldn't work. And eggplant skins. I think that they all work. Carrot skins will also help to render the color. And one other interesting thing about using scraps. So say that you have the end of the carrot. If you put it in as the whole, let's say 1-inch chunk that it might be, of course it's going to give flavor, but you also want to think about color. So the thinner or the smaller dice that you use on that piece will help deepen the color of the stock. Because one thing is you kind of want to move away from that brown murky color. You want to show that you've got a little life in this stock that you're making. So always with the peel. And people in your house will start to wonder about what's in the freezer because in no time flat, bags of vegetable scraps. We have to think of a better name than scraps, maybe a residue or something, I don't know. Anyway, great question, very, very good question. Where did you find the vegan tarali? Bettina, hi, how are you? The house I was staying at made vegan tarali. I believe There are many brands of vegan tarali. The Forte brand, Forte, which is from, oh, the name will come to me in a second, um, are made in Italy and they sell them in America. And you can find them, but however, most brands have oil in them. So that's the thing that you have to kind of watch out for. But there are ways to substitute oils as well. You know, you could use um, an almond butter. You could use tofu. There, you look at some of the recipes that we use, and clearly you can see that we have a full carte blanche of substitute ingredients that work well and everything. Um, that name will come to me in a second. But anyway, Bettina, a great question. Um, this is from Ingrid O again. Hello, Ingrid. You're allowed to ask as many questions as you like. When frying, why French fries are deep fried twice? Why not boil them first and then fry them to brown them again? Why not use one long fry? So you're talking to a person who doesn't fry food. So when I make French fries, I oven fry them. And if you go back to that Rouxbe assignment of roasting vegetables, where vegetables are laid out one by one, not touching each other, so that they roast instead of steam, because when vegetables overlap or touch, they will steam instead of roast. So I have the patience of a saint to lay down 50 or 60 pieces of French fried potato cuts and place them into a 425-degree oven, bake them for 20 minutes, flip them for 10, and they come out as deliciously as a French fry. Or if you have an air fryer, you know, the air fryer, I think, has been a really beneficial thing to many types of chefs and eaters. And I'm a big fan of air fryers. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that question for you, but I appreciated hearing it. This is from Charlene B. Do you find do you find an Instapot to be useful for whole food, plant-based, low SOS cooking? If yes, for which types of recipes do you find? So I'm laughing because several years ago, I had to have an Instapot. And Patrick, who is on this event with us, knows that I may have a tendency to be slightly technologically challenged. And every time I used the Instapot, I felt like I was landing a helicopter. And there was one thing that I made with it, and my family loved it, and it was pasta. It was 32 ounces of water, 32 ounces of pasta sauce, and a pound of pasta. And it cooked up beautifully. But I found that I didn't really enjoy that. Now, Chef Fran cooks wonderful bean dishes, wonderful grain dishes. She makes overnight oats in hers. So if you are exploring whole food plant-based and you're looking for an apparatus that will help you in that way, then I think an Instapot is great. I do love my rice cooker, and I use that a lot for cooking rice. And then I always tell my rice cooker, you're having an identity crisis today, because today you're cooking beans. So I also cook beans in my rice cooker, and it's much easier to use for me than an Instapot. So if you want to get an Instapot, you know, now they're on sale everywhere. Many people seem to love them. The Instapot just wasn't for me, and I gave it away. I gave it away to a friend who's whole food, plant-based, mother of 5, lives in Connecticut, and has an organization called Plant-Based Connecticut. So there you have it. If you're going to get it, I hope you enjoy it. This is from Cynthia D. I'm making a lot of 3-ingredient banana breakfast cookies, which results vary with the size of banana. Is there a guidance to how much a medium, large, etc. banana would be in cups? I think what I would do is to establish a baseline for you. Uh, the next time you make the recipe, I would measure the bananas in a cup so that you know that 3 medium bananas equal a cup, or 2.5 large bananas equal a cup, rather than feeling as though you're taking chances in the dark. Um, but that is a very good question. So measure them, and then you'll have that in your little notebook or a post-it note on the side of your book. Very good question. Oh, hi, May. May has a lot of cookbooks at home, and is it possible to substitute ingredients in order to convert recipes to? Oh, oh, okay, thanks. Sorry, I already answered that. I'm done. Oh, wow. Am I done? Yeah, we're done. Wow. Didn't even realize that. All right. Well, listen, a couple of things. If you're on Instagram and you follow Rouxbe Plants or Rouxbe at Rouxbe Plants, over the weekend we'll be posting a query. We're looking for some of your favorite side dishes for the holidays, and we will love to post them on on our social media pages. So look for first of all, follow us at Rouxbe Plants at Rouxbe, and then look for the post. And if you see a post on our social media pages that you like it, comment, tag one of your instructors in it. And, that's the way that we let everyone know of the wonderful, magnificent, beautiful work that all of you do. So I'm going to give a shout out to everyone who brought a question to the table today. And I think, let's see, I think we're good. I hope that everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and many thanks to Patrick for his help today. And from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, I bid you a wonderful afternoon.